So in the third step, what we're going to explore is visitor orbit strength. So we want to know how far away their orbit is, or how tightly enclosed the orbit is. So if you just think about planets orbiting from your, astrology classes or science classes in grade school, you'll remember that the tighter the orbit, the faster the planet would spin around or rotate around the object it's moving around. And it's kind of like our visitors. And so the tighter the orbit, the more frequently they're coming back, the longer they're staying, the more engaged they are. And the wider the orbit they have, the less engaged they are. So kind of keep that in mind as we move through step 3. So like I said, we're trying to figure out how loyal they are to the company. And one of the things that people think they need to do when we start talking about visitors is go immediately to the audience tab and start getting down and dirty with the data, kind of like what we see here on the page. And so a lot of people will jump in here and they want to know where people are from and what's going on. But what I encourage you to do is stay away from it, at least for now. Instead, what we want to do is we're going to take a look at something called frequency and recency. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is the screenshot from the frequency and recency of the Google Merchandise Store, and you can see the count of sessions. And so what we're looking at is how many sessions, how many times is this person or people coming back to the site. And so you can see here from visitors loyalty, when they only come once, this is an indication that the people who are visiting your site are coming once, leaving, and not coming back within this given time period. Now, if you expanded the time period, yeah, maybe that number drops a little bit. But in the span of a month, you'll notice that people will come once a month, or, then we look, so we're, again, once a month, we're looking here at, some people are coming, 100 to 200 times within a month, and 8 people are coming, or excuse me, and we have 362, I think that number says, coming 8 times, so on and so forth. And so what we, at a macro level, what's the distribution of the number of times people visited the site in the time period? And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the distribution as opposed to just numbers or even an average, right? The number of times, what's the average of people visiting the site? And we might get a number maybe close to 4. But really, when you look at distribution, we're able to tell some different stories. And so what we're looking for is interesting and valuable visitor loyalty patterns. The other thing that we want to look at is, and I want to show you a couple of the other sites that I'm working with, and you can see here that their pattern is a lot different than their pattern is a lot different than this pattern, right? This pattern, it's a one-time visit, and then they don't really come back. Here, we see a lot of engagement happening at the 9 to, we'll even say 50 level. So these people are coming back in a period of a month, 9 to 50 times, 4, 8, 12, so we have 1,000, so 1,200, and that's half, right? That's half of our visits that are coming in once. And so half of the people really in our population are coming back, 1,200 people. That's significant for this particular website. This website has a similar distribution to the first one, but we can also see 9 to 50 here. We have some traction. So we have about 5,000 people coming in. And again, it's not a significant number, so it's not 31,000, of course, but it's significant enough that that's a lot of folks that I want to be paying attention to. And so I might make a statement relating to the fact that we have these folks coming back in this quantity, and they're large enough of an audience that I might want to be paying attention to them. Now I also recognize, and you should recognize, that these are ranges, these are single digits, and so of course these numbers are going to be a little bit bigger, or at least you would speculate that those numbers are going to be a little bit bigger than some of these, because again, this is 3 times versus 9 to 14, so you're going to have a large chunk of people. However, it still gives us an idea of where we can focus. And so when we're looking at this, what I would be looking at is the gap between 2 visits. And this is what we call visitor recency, right? So this is what we're looking at, what I just talked to you about. And so I'm going to go under audience to get to those charts that I just showed you. We're going to go under audience, behavior, and then frequency and recency. And so what I can see here on the screen, again, it's the days since the last session. So here, we were looking at the count of sessions, how many times people were visiting the site. This is how many days have passed since the last session. So again, visitor recency. So 0, I just want you to ignore that completely. So this is the people that are on the site right now or have visited once. But what I'm most interested in looking at is people who come back frequently. So these are your loyalists. These are people who are coming back relatively frequently. And there's not a lot here. But we do have people who come back, maybe it looks like once every couple weeks to once every month. So we have, 20, 25, 3,000 people coming back in this range here. And so when why do I care about this? Well, one of the things that I might do from a strategic point is to think about the times that I'm changing my content, the periods of times, how fresh I want my content to be. I also want to think about if I'm sending out newsletters or emails to drive people to the site, I might want to send them out somewhere in this window because I have this chunk of people who are visiting right now every 2 weeks. And maybe I want to make that more frequent to see if I can drive some traffic, maybe as an experiment. And so recency and days since last session help us decide how tight the orbit is. How often are they coming back to visit? If your number is exceptionally high down here, right, so they're visiting once a year, once every couple of years, you want to have some conversations with your folks about their website design and keeping their content fresh, especially if you are heavily loaded at the top here. So that would mean that any traffic coming back is coming back, down in this range here, 60, so 2 to 3 months, up to a year, and they're only coming back once or twice. We have some problems because, again, our orbit's not very tight, which means that we're not getting information out there, which probably would result in a very poor e-commerce conversion rate. And so again, we're trying to measure the gap between the 2 visits for the same person. So here's a look at our other 2 businesses we've been looking at. You can see once again, both of them also have the highest number here at 0, meaning people came, visited, and that was it. Then we have down here, though, we have these buckets. We have some buckets here as well, but we want to be paying attention to, we have some here as well. So we want to pay attention to the long tail, the groups of people, not just that front end here, but the groups of people down here. They still account for thousands of people. We should be paying attention to them and their behavior so that we can maximize their purchase power. One of the bonus things for number 3 is that you want to take a look at the engagement report. And so what we're looking for here is when they come to the site, did they visit more or less often? And so the length of visit is what we're looking at here. We want to look at the distribution of the average time on site by session and by page views. And you can see that you find this under the audience, behavior, and engagement tab. And so we can see that here's a distribution of the session length based on the number of seconds. Okay, so I can look at this and I can say how many people, when they got to the site, took a look at it and were on there. These are kind of the engaged folks, right? They're on it for more than a minute. And so we have quite a few here. We have a pretty large distribution. But we also have a number of people here who are under 10 seconds. Obviously, the goal is to minimize this, right? We want them on our site longer than 10 seconds and to maximize and leverage this group down here. And we do that through site optimization, making sure that the landing pages are fresh. We're going to talk about that. Kind of our next few steps here will help us with that. You can see the other 2 sites here as well. They don't have such a clean distribution as this site. So you see this has a nice curve here to it. It's almost a perfect distribution. This has a little bit of a different, I'd be looking at this group right here and asking myself some questions about what pages they're landing on. This one, again, doesn't really have a really great range here, but what it's telling me is that maybe they're coming on this site doing something that takes under 30 seconds and leaving. They're reading a blog post, maybe a short blog post, they're looking at a photo, and they're leaving. So, maybe thinking about my micro conversions and how I can keep them on the site and keep them moving through the site a little bit better. If you want to keep looking at this, so we talked about length of session. The other thing that you can do, still kind of as a bonus here, is the depth of visit. So not only am I looking at how long they're staying in a session, but I want to see how far down on my website they're actually going. And so I take a look at this, and again, this is pretty typical, this curve range here, that it decreases as we go down here. But we can see that we do have some active engagement up here, or there's not active engagement, we have poor engagement up here. This basically means if they hit one page and they leave, that means that they're bouncing. And so this corresponds with a very high bounce rate, or not a very high bounce rate, but it corresponds with our bounce rate. We continue down through here. What I'd like to see is these numbers in this, in this 4, 5, 6, 7 range increase. And so I'd really like to see how we're moving people through the site again, helping build that out so that these numbers continue to increase. Because when you get down here, this means active engagement. Here's the pictures of the other sites. So again, I'm just going to flip back. You can see that this distribution is a little bit better. So they have some more active engagement in the 3, 4, maybe even 5 range. Their distribution, so even if we lined them up exactly here, if I can do that. Nope, I can't. Just kidding, I can't really do that. But you can see, if I don't click on it, you can see that their values are pretty close. And that's pretty typical, that the ranges of values are going to be pretty close. If I take a look at the other, going back here, you can see that it's pretty similar. So we're not, none of these sites are totally crazy here. I'm not seeing anything that's super alarming. But one of the things that I probably want to do is try to figure out again a way to build this traffic right in this area. So if you have your notepad out, the things that I'd be writing down for my client are the count of visits, the gap between visits, right? So I'm looking at the number of visits to the site, how long it's been since they visit the site, and then like I said, from the bonus side, I'm looking at the depth of their visit and the length of their visit while they're on the site. So how many times are they coming to the site? How long is it between the visits that they do come? So, in a month, they might come 4 times, but the length between the visits is 2 weeks. And so I guess I can't do that, but you get the idea. It's a week, 7 days. So we're having them come once a week, right? They're not as tight of an orbit. It's pretty good, but they're not as tight of an orbit as somebody who's coming multiple times a week. So note the big buckets. Those are the groups of people at the top that are coming once or frequently, and then look at the other end, right? Note if there's any big buckets at the bottom. Decide, and like I said before, this helps you decide when to post content, etc. So you can actually take an action item directly from this. Second, we look at orbiting in relation to the content freshness and from the business strategy, right? So, okay, we have a really tight orbit. People are hovering on our site. That means that they want new content. They want new stuff. They're looking for up-to-date information, new products, whatever it might be. I need to make sure that that's constantly in their face, constantly being refreshed. I had a client that wanted to change the page header once a week, and what we found was that the orbit of their clientele, the people who were coming to their site, was really about once every 3 weeks was the average orbit, if you will. And they would visit frequently, they would visit consistently. We had high numbers, but they were only coming once every few weeks. And so they were changing it weekly, but nobody was seeing it. And so what we decided is that we would slow down the changing of that header on their website because of the audience. And until we got the audience's orbit tighter, if that's what our goal was, we were going to change the way that we were posting on new content. You want to look, you might do some brief segmentation. Let me show you how to do it in here. I might take my engagement report here with session duration, for example, and you can do this with any of the reports that we just ran. And what I want to do is do a new segment that we talked about before in a couple videos ago. I'm going to create a new segment. I'm going to look at traffic sources. What I'm going to do, I actually want to compare my CPC so I'm just going to call this CPC test. And so you can see that I have people in it. So I want to compare my CPC maybe to another medium that I'm running. So maybe I want to try, let's see. Whoops. how about if I try just organic, I guess. See what the differences are. Organic test. And so what it will do is it will take my data and it's going to compare how what the session length is and duration. And again, you can do this for all of them, but you can see, you might be able to see some differences here. And so obviously these numbers are higher, right? But we want to look at the differences of percentages, I guess, in each of these. And so we have 26,000, this might take you doing some math actually, right? So we have 26,642 coming in from organic search. What's the percentage, you know, when we talk about 12,000? So just quick, it's a little over half, right? 590, okay, so that's a little under half. And so we know just even from this and just some quick math here that this percentage is smaller than this. And so I can continue to do percentages for each of these. And again, this takes me 3 seconds to do. I mean, you just watch me do it, not very long, but this again now tells a different story, right? So hey, I just ran some quick analysis on your CPC versus organic, and it looks like to me that the people who are bouncing off your site are coming from more organic, which makes sense, by the way, more organic search than your CPC, which is a good thing. If your CPC is bouncing higher than your organic, we're in trouble. Okay, because remember, 0 to 10 seconds, that means they came, they puked, they left, pretty much. And again, it's not accurate exactly 100% because this isn't your true bounce rate, but it gives us a pretty good idea. And again, I might go to frequency and recency. In keeping those two, I might take the two segments, I might take a look at the count of sessions. Again, what I would want to do is look at the percentages of each of these. Okay, and again, looking for that story, right? What's the story here? So if we have organic, and organic is only generating 1 session, but CPC is generating, you know, the higher percentage is generating 5, well then, gosh, you know, this is something that I want to invest more money in. And I might actually, so organic obviously is not, you don't pay for that. I might want to look at some of my other paid campaigns here, right? Because then I might want to compare 2 or 3. All my campaigns that I'm running right now. And the reason for that is, where do I invest more money? And this orbit tells me who's more engaged with me. So I might run my CPC tests. I might run, you know, I'm running a t-shirt display ad, another ad for women's bags. And I'm going to look at these 3 and I'm going to decide, okay, which one, you know, I have another $1,000, where am I going to put the money? And well, which is performing better? And I can do that. One of the ways I can do that is by looking at the orbit. Who's going to be coming back? Who's our more loyal customers? Who's developing into our loyal customers? And so you've already visited the site, and so the last one here is, why might the orbit or the depth not be strong? So we've looked at the page depth, right? We've looked at the orbit and how tight it is. Why might it not be strong? You might now know, going back to your very first notes that you made in your notepad, be able to say, well, this makes sense because the things that were stinky, I think is the term we use, the things that were stinky would cause somebody to come to the page, not have a lot of good information and leave. And so you might, again, tie this back in. You know, so when you present to your client, you're not going to present, well, the first thing I did was visit your webpage, and then the second thing I did was this, and the third thing I did was this. You're going to give them a list of findings. And so one of your findings might be your cart stinks on your webpage. You're going to say it nicer, of course, but how do I know that? Because I know that the number of people who are not getting to your cart, right? You start talking about people aren't staying on your site because they're not finding good content. It's the navigation is confusing. How do I know that? Well, because the page depth is terrible. Yeah, and you again are going to know this based on what you find in step 1 and then again in step 3. The next thing that we're going to do is something called aggregate marginal gains. So the first 3 that we've talked about were really strategic, and now we're going to get the next couple are now really tactical. And I like this quote by Jan Carlson, who says, you cannot improve one thing by 1,000%, but you can improve 1,000 little things by 1%. And so this basically means that sometimes when we start these projects, we think we're going to find that one thing that is going to totally revolutionize our business. And that would be fantastic. right? That would be great if that happened, but more realistically, we're going to do a lot of little things that are going to add up and make a difference in our conversion rates and our impact, etc. And so what we're going to do first is look at the top landing pages report. And the way that you find the top landing pages report is under behavior, site content, and then landing pages. And so what we're going to be doing on this page is looking at the bounce rate. And again, for a reminder, the bounce rate is I came, I puked, I left. And so bounce rate is an indicator that something's wrong. Something's wrong with our site. Something's wrong with the content that they found on the site. The link might be broken. Something is definitely wrong. And so in order to use this page, what we're going to do is we want to first find the bad pages, of course, right? And so when you're in this report, you're going to be looking at it. If you change the segments from step 3, you're going to want to change back to all users. And you're going to be looking at the list of things. And I hope that you guys are doing this with me as we go through the video if you can. But you're going to see that, I'm going to organize by bounce rate. So you can click on the bounce rate, which is right here. And what it will do is it will order it from highest bounce rate to lowest bounce rate. And you want to take a quick look at which pages are bouncing. For example, on this site, we have pages. I'm going to move you over here. We have a few pages bouncing at 100%, right? So this bounce rate here is at 100%, all these pages. And so I'm interested to know, and this is how we investigate and dig down, I'm interested to know why. So I click on this little icon here, not the link, but the little icon. What it's going to do is take me to the page. And this is a really good reason why the page is bouncing, because the page is not available. And as I go down my list, we're seeing the page is not available over and over and over again. So these pages, people are still finding the pages. We don't have a lot of sessions going there. We have 4, 1, 1, 1, 4. But these are still real people who are bouncing off our site because we have broken links or broken pages. The next thing that I would do is I would go back. I'm going to go to organize or order this by session. So I want to see the top sessions, the most number of people in the pages that they're on, and what the bounce rate is. And so here we have 59,000 people, and we have about a 49% bounce rate, which is actually fairly good. We see our average bounce rate for the site is 49%. This is not a terrible bounce rate, so this is a good thing. And as I look down the list, these aren't horrible, but they're certainly not fantastic either. And so the two things that I would want to take a look at are the sites that are bouncing lower than the average, right? So 37%, okay, this is good. Why? 34%, even better. And I might say, okay, so this is a Google Redesign Apparel men's outerwear. This is actually, we'll go to the site here, and this is not available. That's fantastic. I'm probably jumping into their site here. I would expect that bounce rate to continue to increase if this is not really the page here. Fantastic. I'm not sure why that happens. So I might go into the site and try to find this page. Or I might not be able to get to the page without being signed in, etc. But I would want to compare this page with another page that has a high bounce rate, which, for our site, this is a pretty high bounce rate. And I would want to compare those two pages to see what's different. They're both selling something. This is looks like maybe it's a YouTube ad. Let's see if this page actually works. None of the pages are available. Fantastic. But these two pages look like they might be similar things, and they have similar traffic. Why is this bounce rate, let's see, actually more than 10 points higher than this particular bounce rate? And so it begins to formulate some questions for me. The other thing I'm really interested in, more than anything, is this e-commerce conversion rate. And this e-commerce conversion rate basically says, and it goes through here, percentage of sessions that resulted in a transaction. I love it. So of all the sessions that were out there, how many of them converted to do what we wanted them to do? And we have 1% here, 1% here, 1.8%, 1.5%, 0. This is bad. Then we have 14%. Well, it's their shopping basket, so I would hope that's a high conversion rate. We have the store converting at 7%. So of all the people who came to the store, 7% ended up converting. But down here are the ones that I'm most concerned about. Why isn't our Google redesign apparel converting? They're only converting at a 0.26%. So this isn't very good. So even though their bounce rate's not terrible, so they're staying on the page, they're not converting. And so I'm going to want to look at this page and see, maybe I need to tweak some links. Maybe I need to ask them to convert. Something needs to happen to bring this number up. Okay? Especially look at these. So the revenue generated at 14% is $10,000. So, if we can get the percentages up just a little bit, or even look here, 1% from their homepage converted, and we have a revenue of $98,000. Well, everybody hits, not everybody, but many people hit the homepage, right? So these are really important decisions to make. How to increase these are going to make a big impact on your business. So as we're looking at that and talking about bounce rate, I just want to remind you why people bounce. The first reason that people bounce is because there was a wrong source campaign or keyword that's directing the customer to a page that had nothing to do with what they searched for. I just found with one of my clients that somehow along the way, and I believe it might have been a firm that they had hired, keywords got tagged onto their site for things like diamond mining, and they're a church. And so when people arrive at the site, they're getting 100% bounce rate. What is happening with that? Well, I'm looking for diamonds and I'm finding Jesus. And so it's not what I was looking for. And so it was the wrong source, the wrong campaign, the wrong keyword. Another reason is that we can have the wrong landing page, right? Bad zero moment of truth. Do not ever direct advertising to your homepage unless you're just trying to show them your homepage, because the advertisement's probably marketing something specific. So you need to build a custom landing page for that particular campaign that will help reduce your bounce rate and increase your marginal gains. The other thing that we want to think about, and again, this is what we're calling bonus, right? The bonus here is that, and I showed you how to do it, we can click on the bad bounce pages, just choose 2 or 3. And now I'm not exactly sure the Google Merchandise Store is not working for us. I think you might have to actually go in and log in and go through the path, but normally that doesn't happen. Normally when you go through and click on the bad bounce pages, you're able to go right to the page. And so then what you want to do is click on the URL of the website, the actual landing page, look at the entrance paths, look at the keywords, look at the in-page analytics. I'm going to show you how to do that with Mercyhurst's site. So once again, I'm on the Mercyhurst analytics page, which you don't have access to, but it's the best way that I can show you, since Google Merchandise Store is not cooperating with me, that I can show you how this works. So we've already talked about how to get here. We look at the bounce rate. I hope that you immediately notice a few things. I hope you immediately notice that Academic Calendar has an 86% bounce rate, and that Hearst Day has an 86% bounce rate. That, to me, first of all, the site average is 55%, which isn't terrible. It's a little higher than I'd like it to be, but it's not terrible. But these two certainly are performing way worse than the site average. We also have the academics page that's performing way better. And so we talked about how to take a look at this, right? We talked about how that I would want to look at the academics page and see what the difference is between maybe the academic calendar and the academics page. And so one of the things you can do first, and we'll take the worst example, is I want to click on the link here, and what it will do is pull up to the page again, and then I'm going to click on source. And you'll notice that this doesn't change up here. So I'm just looking at the sources that are directing traffic just to that page. And what do I find? I find that Google's directing, the majority, which isn't shocking to me. I'm also noticing that we have a lot of direct traffic. This means that these are probably users that have been to this page, students, faculty, who are looking at the page over again. They're looking for the academic calendar. Now, I know the business, so I know that the academic calendar isn't something that many prospective students are going to be looking at. It's usually students who are already enrolled or faculty who are already here. But I also have some traffic from Yahoo, I have traffic from Bing, I have AOL, Ask, etc. What I'm interested in looking at is the bounce rates for these particular sources. And so I have a 100% bounce rate. And again, these are 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, right? And there's a more people down here. But why are the people that are coming from these sites, first of all, why are they coming to this page? Because this is a page that probably I don't necessarily want external traffic coming to. And second, why are they bouncing? What are they being promised that they're not finding? Now, the other thing I can do, because one of the things that I'd be interested in is, well, maybe they're coming on the page, they're looking at it, spending some time on it and leaving. So if we look up here, that's what's happening, right? This is a faculty. This indicates to me that these are faculty members who are coming on the academic calendar. They're looking at this for, their schedules, developing their syllabi, and then they're leaving, which is why the bounce rate's so stinking high. But it's really not an issue to me. But why are people here on Bing versus Google, right? Why are they only spending 45 seconds and these folks are spending a minute? Why are the people on Yahoo spending a minute? So this makes sense, right? These all kind of make sense to me. Direct traffic, again, should be a little bit higher because these are, again, people typing in academics.mercyhurst.edu. That would be me, right? Why are people coming from Android, Google Quick Search Box, only spending 8 seconds? Maybe the page isn't mobile friendly. And then we have 0% or 0 time spent on the site for all these other engines. What's happening? Why are they getting to this page? Why are they coming from Facebook? Did we have an ad? Did we have something that was inadvertently linking to this page? So we want to be very careful with these. But that's how you would kind of dig down a little bit deeper. Now I showed you, as I mentioned before, let me go all the way back. Let's say I want to take a look at the academic calendar page to see what it looks like. Let's say it's a typical page. Well, here, let's go to Life at Hearst Day. So we had a lot of traffic. I want to look at this page and see what's happening. So this is really meant for internal audiences, but it's also a nice thing to have for our prospective students because, obviously this is exciting and fun and I'd want to be part of it too. And so from this page, if you look up here, you can download something called in-page analytics, and for Chrome specifically, and it will actually, every page you land on that you have access to, will show you the in-page analytics for each of these where they clicked. And so we can see that from this page, the majority of people wanted to see more about campus life. That's a good thing, right? So we know that people went here and they clicked on it. They want to learn more about campus life. If I were at Mercyhurst running the website, that's a pretty good win. They're also going to admissions. They're going to about. These are 3 things I would definitely want them to do. We can also see down here we have a few other people who went right to apply. All right, we like that. We have people who are looking for directions. They're like, I want to be part of this. Let's go. Mercyhurst contacts. I want to call somebody. Financial information again. How much are you going to cost me and how much are you going to give? So here is, we even have some people clicking on Corey. They want to see if this is happening at our Corey campus. Also some people up here with visits. And so this gives me some insight. I would go back to Mercyhurst's folks and say, hey, this has a really high bounce rate. But here are the tabs, here are the places that people were visiting. We might want to have a custom page that doesn't have all of this stuff in the header. We just want to jump to the chase. This is all about our campus life, or talk to us about admissions, and give them an opportunity. We probably have a micro conversion on there like visit, okay? Because these are the things that people are clicking, right? Do we want people having to scroll all the way down here to get information? Probably not. Let's see if we can rebuild this landing page to be custom so that more people are going to click on the links and do what we want them to do. You can also go on that same report that I was showing you and you can click on the button that says keywords. You can look at entrance paths. You can look at in-page analytics like I showed you. So there's a number of things that you can do with that URL of the website. So if you're filling out your notepad, the first thing I would be looking at is broken pages. And we saw a few of those on the merchandise page, but I don't think all of those are really broken. So I think that that's just an analytics glitch. They do restrict some access. Like if you download in-page analytics, like we just talked about, you're not going to be able to do the in-page analytics for the Google Merchandise Store, unfortunately, because they have restricted access to that. But any other website that you would have access to, they would give you access to do that. But some of the broken pages, you're going to want to identify those. But also broken in terms of you have a really high bounce rate, very low average session duration. You're not converting at all. This would be a talk that I would be having with my client to say this page is broken. So even if it's up and it's working, you're not getting a 404 error. There's still something wrong with it. Possible mismatches between sources and content, again, talking about the fact that maybe Facebook is telling them to go learn more about classes starting soon, and you're sending them to an academic calendar. And if I was on Facebook clicking on an ad about classes, I'm not going to want to know when my classes are, or the calendar. I'm going to want to know about the classes. Specific fixes for 2 or 3 pages. Give them ideas for 2 or 3 pages. You may introduce page survey, which just pops up a little survey. If I can't figure out why people are bouncing off a page, right? So maybe I have no idea. Like I've racked my brain and I cannot figure out why people are bouncing off the academic calendar. I might use something like kissinsights.com, and a little pop-up comes up and says, "Can you help us with this page? Can you give us some information in terms of how was your visit? Did you find what you wanted? Do you have any suggestions?" And people will tell you, especially if the page is not good, they'll give you some information. And we're just going right to the customer, the voice of the customer. That's the VOC, voice of the customer, to get some insights.